kinds of things that we would work up and share with the community of ways you could develop that center. Very, very important notion is falling out of this already. I've mentioned it once and I'll mention it over and over again. Never look at something in isolation. Always look at it as a part of a composite whole. Sometimes it's a block, sometimes it's 5 blocks, sometimes it might be the whole city. But in this particular case, in the Miller Plaza, we developed guidelines for a 6-block area. Nothing like this had been tried in Chattanooga ever. And actually the city, it was a council at the time, passed the guidelines in principle. They wouldn't turn it in, and we actually didn't want them to be rules that you follow. We wanted the principles of those guidelines. And they're illustrated here in this model. This model was around for years. And that has to do with the edge of the public realm, the landscape structure, mixed-use buildings, activities on the ground floor, office or continuum space in the middle, housing on the top. And when you make a public space, you make a public space that has a way to generate activity and is used all through the year. This was the basic plan. It was accepted by the city, and we had the opportunity to demonstrate the notion of guidelines. There were many people in the city who felt that if you have guidelines, all villages look the same. That's not the way it works. Guidelines are based on principles. Principles are based on top, edge, typology of use. All these things add up to fundamental ideas. As long as those fundamental ideas are right, you can get this kind of differentiation of interpretation. We brought 5 architects in to look at those guidelines, and they produced this variety of response. We then built the first phase of it. And again, this discussed earlier by both the presenters. The scale of what you do has to go from the individual place for me to sit and talk to my friend, or it goes to the place for the city to gather, to communicate, to celebrate, to care, and to have a memory. Because really it's about memory. It's about people being able to, I know what happens there. I know where you mean. And this is the Miller Plaza that we built in 1988. It was actually occupied. That central pavilion in that wasn't just a pavilion. It was a place to bring together the whole community, because we were still, as many communities were then, and some still are, we hadn't really brought together all the elements of our community. We didn't understand, as a wonderful statement I saw in the municipal building, about the paella notion of this community, of everything working together, having its own part, they work together to make a greater whole. That's incredibly important. But we still had a Black community. It was very, very separate. We also had a white community go down there. We had a separation. This place was built here in the center of the city to bring those together. And if we could blow this up and look at the composition of the people there, you'd say it worked. It's an interesting slide because those guidelines hung around for a long time. It took 15 years to get the next building built, which was this, and it was built to the guidelines. And again, it was done by persuasion. We go to the waterfront. Our waterfront, like many, was manufacturing, had railroads down there. It eventually had a highway going across it like this, had a few scruffy little landings for a boat, and at that time it was about the only place you could go to the river in a public way. So that's what we approached. How do you go about looking at that? Do you look at it as an isolated place, the river? Do you look at it as a district in your city? Do you look at it as a room? And we looked at all those things. We the top is very similar. The one on the right, which is more the direction we went in the end, was about a room, a front porch. But again, it had a name. It had an idea behind it. So when we did exhibits and talked to people, we could call it something. You can find people talking, did you hear about that front porch? You know what a front porch is. That's a place to gather. That's a place for us to feel proud of our community and to feel comfortable. When we got going on that, 10 years later, remember the time on this. It takes time to do these things. The community finally decided that they wanted a catalyst to energize the river. And my real strength behind this one was to assure that we had a public place on the river. The aquarium became a catalyst, but these are studies again, looking at where the aquarium went. You see a study that talks about the aquarium, the edges, the uses, the plaza itself, and in this case, trying to look at what you might be able to do with that road. And when this was built in 1992, it reached back to downtown. You take the left-hand side of this slide. That sort of water feature there is about the primal beginnings of water reaching down to the Tennessee River, and it carries on down the river. But when you look back and you see the earth opening up and you look through it, you're looking straight down to downtown. And reach out. Make sure that anything you do involves all of what's around. And that then becomes a part of the wholeness of the city. The other idea here on the lower right actually has to do with not necessarily not trying to be fancy, using metaphorical ideas, but the notion that it's special to make your parts, or a plaza in this case, and your buildings, reflect you, reflect our place. And those lifted arches were not only about giving people various places to be in the park at different levels, they were sort of the forms of the mountains that form the valley, and the water features running through. And within all of that, we planted ideas. We had a timeline, and we celebrated things that happened in the Civil War, things that happened where the river became the Indians 11,000 years before. This is all important because they begin to realize you are a part of the transformation. You are a part of the ongoing role of describing and making your city, not only for you, but for those that come after you. Landscape, low-rated cover. It can't be emphasized enough. I just love the idea of urban forest. We started moving that direction. Unfortunately, the center of this got a disease, but it's back in place. But that's very, very important. We use landscape both as a basic structure and as a way to enhance and give character and quality to different places by using different trees in different ways of landscape. Again, we're back to the idea of having a bigger plan. We had an opportunity to take in about 15 acres around the aquarium, and we developed a much more detailed plan than this. I just wanted to share with you to get us the basic idea of once you create a catalyst, you have to be ready then to respond and also know what you want to happen around it. And go out and find that. Encourage it. These are the kinds of things that did happen around, are happening around. Everything from a Creative Discovery Museum to a stairway of a 90-foot height. It's not a stairway, it's a handicap ramp, because we made our commitment to making the Riverwalk handicap accessible, visitor center, and other activities. The lower right's an interesting story in itself, and you'll have to deal with this, and you have dealt with it some and they belong in the suburbs. And what do you have to do? Say, no, can't do that. This is our downtown. We build in a way that reinforces the street, that creates activity at the street level, that has an edge, that redefines a corner, if that's important. That's what we want you to do, and we were there all the time to help those developers understand that. And I'm not about to say we won every battle, but we came close. And it takes, again, this consistency of principle. And I think, and this is one of the things I want to leave with you, you have to have a place that people know all the time. Someone is there waking up every day about what we're talking about. That people come into the city, want to do something, they go there. And they see